There we go, it's gone. Thank you very much, Julian. And thank you very much to yourself and the other session organisers for inviting us to speak here today. As Julian said, we were one of the AHRC EPSRC funded projects, and it was called the Immersive Partnerships call. So it would only be right for me to start by telling you a bit about the partnership that we were working with. You can see the logos behind me. Our partnership consists of myself and my colleagues at Bournemouth University, not least Elizabeth Falconer, who can't be here today, who was really the brainchild behind this project. Daden, who are a virtual reality specialist, excuse me, Satsymph, who specialise in soundscapes, and the National Trust, who, for those of you who are not aware of them, they are a very long-established organisation that work in Wales, England and Northern Ireland to preserve and protect places of historic and natural interest. And they have over 5 million members, and they are the people who manage the site I'm talking about today. So what am I going to talk to you about? I'm going to talk to you about a project called Virtual Avebury. Now, Virtual Avebury is a simulation, and I thank Will for talking about that and bringing up that discussion. It's very clearly a simulation, not a reconstruction, of how Avebury, Henge and Stone Circle might have looked around 2300 BCE. And what I'm going to take you through is how we made it, importantly what Avebury is and why we actually started there. But I'm going to try and spend most of my time today talking about the evaluation we did, because that was really a key part of our grant and some of the results we got from that, and picking up on some of the questions we had earlier, some of the challenges and some of the surprises we had from those data sets. So let's start with, for those of you not familiar with the site, I want to talk to you a little bit about Avebury to give you the context of the site we're talking about, why we chose it in the first place. So Avebury, Henge and Stone Circle, it's a prehistoric monument. It's in Wiltshire, in central southern UK. It is quite a dispersed monument. The diagrams you can see on the screen behind me, if you look, you can see the one that's got the labels on it, prehistoric henge. That henge, which is a ditch with an internal, a bank with an internal ditch, is about a kilometre in circumference. This is a very, very large monument. Inside that, where you see it's written stone circles, there's a number of stone circles, the largest of which is about 350 metres in diameter, consists of probably over 90 stones, which are anywhere between 3.5 to 4.5 metres in height. And then it's got a number of other stone settings inside it. I'm sure the eagle-eyed of you will have spotted that currently this monument, and it has had for many hundreds of years, has been dissected by a number of roads. It has an entire village in it and a range of other buildings, and it is on one of the main thoroughfares to Swindon, a large town to the north of it. So when you visit it, it's quite disarticulated, or it can feel that way for the visitor. So unlike the other famous monument that it's situated in the same World Heritage Site as, Stonehenge, which some visitors to Avebury still believe they're visiting. Believe me, I discovered this summer, which was quite a shock. That was a surprise. But it can be very hard to get a sense of actually what the monument looked like when we're talking about prehistory. So the National Trust was very interested in different ways of presenting this to the public. So that led us to develop Virtual Avebury. So I'm going to talk to you a bit now about how we actually put it together. We started with the Environment Agency LiDAR data, and Daden took that, and they used their own Fieldscapes platform to create some of the first terrain models. And they formed the ditches and banks, and then they started to interpret the heights based on the archaeological data that we know of from the archaeologists in the project. And to attempt to start to reconstruct it, to simulate it, I'm going to be careful with my words, as it might have been around 2300 BCE. So we got the basic model, and then we all started working in World to develop the visual and the audible character, and that's really important because there's both of these aspects that are part of this project. And you can see below that Satsymph started to build their soundscape structure, and the types of sounds that we had in Virtual Avebury were a range of, I say human voices, but they're kind of muffled human voices. So you can't hear actual words and things like that, but you can hear laughing and kind of calling, etc. But you can't disarticulate the words. We also had things like sort of sounds of animals, sounds of stone tool use, etc. as well. We had a few artifacts within our environment as well. We had some grooveware, so the pottery of that time, and we also had some red deer antler picks, and they were located at various places around the environment. And we also had two avatars that were dressed in sort of prehistoric outfits that were in there as well, but they were static, but they were in there too. So all the parts were synthesized to format. And actually the partnership found this very straightforward, but it was a very enjoyable and easy thing to do. And actually the really hard part was getting it to work in Avebury, which for those of you who've been there is well known as the mobile phone black spot of Wiltshire. And at the time we were having to run it off field scope, so we needed that mobile phone connection, and we managed to get around this by a variety of tricks involving bamboo sticks and little mobile phone connectors. But we were not outside, we were in the barn in Avebury, which is, as the name suggests, a barn where the museum is that is associated with the site. So it's actually on site. Visitors may come in there before they go around the monument, after they go around the monument. It's quite variable, but they do need to be a National Trust member if they don't want to pay. So you tend to get more of those members coming in there. The barn is quite dark. Doesn't have many facilities, and it has a lot of resident bats. Bats and technology are not always the best of friends after 6 months, believe me. It's the not the bats necessarily, it's what the bats leave behind that can be a slight issue. But we managed all of that with the help of a lot of the National Trust volunteers. What really happened with Virtual Avebury, and what our key part of our grant was to take it out into the barn for over 40 days and actually run it and collate user evaluation. And we did that last summer, over the summer months. It was very, very hot last year in the UK. It was very hot inside that barn, but we got over 700 people to try the experience, which was a huge amount. And we actually got evaluation data from 388 of those, which is a very large sample set. Now, our users, although they range from 16 to 85, that's only the ones that we've included in the evaluation sample set. We did have a lot of users under 16, but for various ethical and practical reasons, we're not including them here. They came from all over the world, but predominantly from the UK. And you can see some of the 108 others who came from the 18 different countries on the map below. So what were our users like? Well, I hope you can see this. Well, I don't know how good the screen is at the back. This is the age and gender distribution of our users. The blues are males, the reds are females. And we got predominantly users who were in the 45 and older age groups, and that really is not surprising because it reflects a lot of the membership of the National Trust. So you've got a lot of parents and grandparents visiting with their relatives, and that's the sort of the main demographic that you're getting at that time. To give you a sense of how it differs to certainly the UK population, you can see that here we've got our data is in purple, the UK population average is in green. You can see that we've got this big spike at that sort of 44 plus going up into the plus 75. So I think that's something to be aware of when I talk about these evaluation data, that is what it's reflecting. So we asked a lot of questions, not just age, gender, demographic questions, but we asked a lot of questions about IT use. experience with IT, experience with immersive, any other form of immersive technology. We also asked them about how they felt about Avebury, whether they'd been there before, etc. It was quite an extensive questionnaire. It was run off tablets after they'd done the experience themselves, and it probably took them 5 to 10 minutes to do. So it was quite it's quite a lot of data. I'm only presenting some of the highlights today. So what did they say? Well, generally, everyone really, really enjoyed using Virtual Avebury. And I'm going to show you a couple of graphs now that split down a few of the specific questions. They found it was engaging. They found that it made them think a lot more about the environment. And some of the emotions they experienced, we wanted to see how comfortable they were when they're immersed in the Oculus Rift headset. Very few found it difficult at all, and there's no correlation between that and any previous IT use either. The whole enjoyment aspect doesn't seem to have any statistical connection with how comfortable you might feel about IT before. We asked them about the soundscape as well, and they really enjoyed that. That was something else. A very small sector said they didn't notice it, and our soundscape guys have said that they would like to think that's because it was so good that it was part of the natural environment. But it was really interesting, and the users seem to really enjoy that aspect of it as well. We collected free text data as well, and I've put a few sort of quotes up as we go along that you can sort of read, and that's the barn just above me on the left, and you can see someone using it there. We had either 1 or 2 users in world at any one time, so there's also some things there about interaction I can talk more about later. But sense of place is one of the parts of the call that we were looking at. And what was interesting is the majority of our users here said, we asked them 2 questions around this, and they said they do get that really strong sense of being in the place and actually being in a landscape. We asked the question slightly differently as well. And we said, how believable do you think it is? And you can see then the majority thinks either fairly or very believable to be there, and they seem to like the appreciation of being in VR, but then being able to go out into the monument or vice versa. You're not very far from it. But what I want to end on, I suppose, is I want to explore one of the things that was a bit surprising to us, and what we observed when we were doing all of the evaluation was that often we would get family groups coming to us, and what we would get was we would often find particularly women, probably over the age of about 45, would be reluctant to try the technology. They would rather let the male member of the party and the child go first. And we wanted to understand what this was about, whether there was a gender relationship with IT. So we started examining the data. And what we found actually surprised us, we were talking about things that you don't expect. When we looked at the data, unsurprisingly, in the 16 to 24 age group, they're the highest users of using games and IT. But if you go above 44, all of a sudden, when we started asking questions about how regularly do you play computer games, and that could include tablet games as well as immersive or on-screen games, all of a sudden, after about 44, it's the female side of our evaluation data hits a peak. And if you go to 65 and above, there are more women playing computer games than there are men. And so it's made us really think about what it is we might need to do in iterations of Virtual Avebury to make our work more accessible to those people over 44 who are women. And I should say, though, when they tried it, they loved it. So it was just that reticence to sort of step over. But it was really interesting to see something that I think many of us had felt sort of, stereotype of who actually plays computer games. In our data, there's some very surprising results from that. So just to sort of wrap up, really, I suppose what I hope I've shown you is just a sort of snapshot of some of the data we've got from Virtual Avebury. It was a real success, but I think that the key take-home message for us from our project was that we couldn't find any significant relationship between, or association between, age or gender or familiarity with IT, with enjoyment and engagement and immersion in this type of immersive heritage experience. And in fact, what all we had was, we want to spend longer on it, we want to do more on it. Managing demand was really difficult. But one of the things we're doing in the future is we're looking at ways to embed this within the barn so that the volunteers with the National Trust can continue running Virtual Avebury into the future. So looking at sustainable ways to continue this type of activity. So thank you very much.